When working with static table views, we don't necessarily need to use the data source methods if we're working with storyboard scenes. We can provide all the information about how many sections and rows we want right here in the scene editor. And since this is fixed information, the table view doesn't need to query the data source methods for each row as it sets itself up. So back in the contact detail controller, let's get rid of these. So no need for the table view data source methods. When we created this table view controller, it included some default implementations of the methods and then just returned 0, which is why we weren't seeing any cells on the screen. Remember that when you specify that the table view contains 0 sections, it won't call any of the other methods, which makes sense. No sections means no rows. Without these methods, the table view is going to rely on the information provided in the storyboard scene since we've specified it as static content in a group style. So let's head back there. Instead of putting all the information in a single section here, let's try splitting things up to make the information easier to parse, also so you can see how different sections look like in a group style. So at the top in the table view, well, make sure you select the table view, and then at the top in the attributes inspector, we're going to specify the number of sections this static table view will contain as 2. Okay, so at the top here, we're going to list the person's contact info, and below that we'll list their address with each component in a single row. In the document outline, if you expand out the table view, you can see that each table view section is represented as its own object over here. A section contains a number of cell objects, and each cell object has a content view. We want the first section here to have 2 rows, so we're going to click on the table view section and then specify the number of rows as 2. For the second section, we'll want 4. Now, our next step is quite simple actually. Since these are static cells that will always be present in this view, we can treat these much like regular views, at least the content view subview here, and we can add any subviews to this to design it how we want. So, for example, let's drag out a label. So, label right here. For each row, we'll have a label indicating what's on that row on the left, and then on the right, we'll use a second label to show the information for each contact. So first up is the phone number. Now, since we're adding this to the content views as a subview rather, we need to position this. So we'll keep it simple. We'll say this is 0 points from the margin on the leading edge, add the constraint, and then vertically center that. On the right side, we'll want a label to display the contact's phone number. So once we've dragged that out, let's change the text to some placeholder information. So 111 222 3333. Let's change the style though so it's easier to see. We'll give it a color of light gray. Make sure you right align it and then position it. And this time we want to add a trailing constraint, 0 points, and vertically center it. Now, the rest of the table view is much the same, so I'm going to zoom through adding all the labels. The difference here is the actual text that goes in. So I trust that you should be able to handle this on your own. So in a second, look at what my labels look like, pause the video, and then implement it yourself. All right, so now that we have all the labels up, how do we get information into those labels? Well, in the same way that we do with normal views, using outlets. So let's clear up some space here and switch to the assistant editor. And select this so that the right file loads over here. There we go, contact detail controller. All we have to do now is create a few outlets from these labels to the contact detail controller. So we'll do that right here. Outlets. So first we'll drag from the phone number. We'll call this phone number label. Next is the email. So email label. Street address label. City label. 2 more to go. That one is state label. And finally, zip label. Next, well, let's switch back to the standard editor here. Contact detail. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is create a method called configureView, and we'll use that method to set up all these labels. All we need to do after that is to call configure when the view loads. So func configureView. Now, since the contact property that we'll be using in this controller to get all the information from is an optional property, first we need to unwrap it. So guard let contact equal contact else. And for now, we're just going to return. No error handling. Once this is unwrapped, the rest is really easy. So phone number label.text is contact.phone. Email label.text is contact.email. Street address label.text is contact.street. We have 3 left, so city label.text rather is contact.city. Then we have the state. And finally, the zip code. If you run the app now, it won't work though. And that's because the master table view needs to let the detail view know which contact was tapped. Well, we'll figure that out in the next video.